The following program is a UWTV special broadcast.
From Meany Hall on the University of Washington campus, an academic convocation honoring the Most Reverend Desmond Mpilo Tutu, Archbishop Emeritus of Cape Town. Recorded May 7th, 2002. This telecast is brought to you by the University of Washington Foundation and the University of Washington Alumni Association.
Please join me in welcoming our honored guest this afternoon, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. This afternoon's convocation will be opened with the singing of the national anthems of South Africa and the United States. The South African national anthem, Nkosi Sikelel' Afrika, will be sung by Laura Chiora Dai and the Sukutai Mbira Ensemble. The Star-Spangled Banner will be sung by Jose Rubio, a voice student in the School of Music. The audience will please rise.
Sikelel' Afrika, maluphakanyiswa uphondo lwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu, Nkosi sikelela, Nkosi sikelela, Nkosi sikelel' Afrika, maluphakanyiswa uphondo lwayo, izwa imithandazo yethu, Nkosi sikelela, thina lusapho lwayo. Woza moya, woza, woza moya, woza, woza moya, oyingcwele, Nkosi sikelela, thina lusapho lwayo. Woza moya, woza, woza moya, woza, woza moya, oyingcwele, Nkosi sikelela, thina lusapho lwayo.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Richard L. McCormick, President of the University of Washington.
Thank you, Marshall Moore. Welcome to this special academic convocation of the University of Washington. Ceremonies like this one express traditions and values going back hundreds of years, values such as freedom and learning. Today, we proudly invoke those traditions and values to honor one of the heroic individuals of our time, Archbishop and Nobel laureate Desmond Tutu. Freedom and learning, in the deepest sense, have been central themes of his life. It is a great privilege to have him here as the focal point of this festive occasion. Before we proceed very far into the program, I would like to acknowledge and thank the wonderful musicians participating in this afternoon's ceremony. The University Wind Ensemble, under the direction of Professor Timothy Salzman and Jose Rubio in his freshman year at the university, are all talented students from our School of Music. I am pleased you have had the opportunity to hear them today. Later in the program, you will learn more about the other musicians joining us in celebration of Archbishop Tutu. Now I would like to introduce members of the stage party. The ultimate responsibility for the university lies with the members of the Board of Regents, 10 citizens of the state who are appointed by the governor and who devote many hours each year to the welfare of the university. 7 of our regents are with us this afternoon, and I would like to introduce them at this time. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. Ark Chin, President of the Board of Regents. Regent William H. Gates. Regent Sally Jewell. Regent Constance Proctor. Regent Amit Ranaday, our Student Regent. Regent Shelley Yap. Regent Cindy Zender, the Regents of the University of Washington. I would also like to introduce administrative and student leadership of the university. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. Provost and Chief Academic Officer Lee Huntsman. Executive Vice President Weldon Eyrig. Vice President for Minority Affairs Rusty Barcello. Vice President for University Relations Jack Farris. Vice President for Development and Alumni Affairs Connie Kravis. Vice President for Student Affairs Ernest Morris. Chancellor Warren Buck of the University of Washington Bothell. Danica Yu, President of the Associated Students of the University of Washington. David Nixon, President of the Graduate and Professional Student Senate. Please recognize these university leaders. Also seated on the stage this afternoon are deans, chairs, and faculty members from the various colleges, schools, and departments of the university. I would like now to introduce leaders of the other higher education institutions in our community who are with us today to celebrate Archbishop Tutu. Please hold your applause until all are introduced. Father Stephen Sundberg, President of Seattle University. Dr. Philip Eaton, President of Seattle Pacific University. Dr. Peter Koo, Chancellor of the Seattle Community Colleges. Dr. Ron Lafayette, President of North Seattle Community College. Dr. Charles Mitchell, President of Central Seattle Community College. Dr. David Mitchell, President of South Seattle Community College. Please recognize our colleagues in higher education. The Desmond Tutu Peace Foundation, based here in Seattle, was established to advance the philosophy and practices of Archbishop Tutu through the development of leadership academies in this country and through support for the Desmond Tutu Peace Center in South Africa. With us today are two leaders of the foundation, Dr. Dean Robert Taylor of St. Mark's Cathedral here in Seattle, president of the Desmond Tutu Peace Foundation. Dr. Constance W. Rice, executive director of the Peace Foundation. Finally, I would like to introduce two leaders who will bring greetings from the larger Northwest community. First, Mayor Greg Nichols of the City of Seattle.
President McCormick, honorable regents, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Twain once said that one of his most pleasant winters was a summer on Puget Sound. And this morning, as I saw the Olympic Mountains and the sun reach those mountains and they gleamed white with fresh snow, and I suddenly realized that this was May, Mr. Twain's saying came very true. And the glory of that sight is only exceeded by the glory of the visit of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He is a man of peace and reconciliation. He is a man who has much to teach us here in Seattle. Archbishop Tutu, I want to thank you for gracing us with your presence here today, for the work that you have done to make our world a safer place, and particularly for the time that you took yesterday to visit with some of our young leaders here in Seattle, to help them find their passion for peace and reconciliation, to help them step into the leadership role that they will assume someday. It is a great honor for us to welcome you today, to thank you for gracing us, and to tell you that your legacy and teachings are in good hands with Dean Taylor and Dr. Rice, representing you here in Seattle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nichols. And now please welcome King County Executive Ron Sims.
Archbishop Tutu, President McCormick, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Rice, all the distinguished guests, the Board of Regents. When I was in college, there was a debate on my campus. It started with the psychology students. We decided at that time there was no God. Then the sociology students waded in, and then the anthropology students waded in, and then people not allowing the social sciences to determine the destiny of humankind, we were joined by the biological sciences and the mathematicians. It was a year-long debate, subsequently answered by a history professor. Psychology students don't have much time for history professors. But this history professor said that the study of history is the study of gifts to humankind. It is not just dates and times, it is the movement of history and the study of gifts to humankind. That every generation and every period has been given a person of such extraordinary talent. They have quieted the rough waters. They've required us to be greater than ourselves. So today, we get to witness the University of Washington honoring an incredible gift, an individual because of his remarkable sense of principle, his fierceness in ethics, a person who has softly touched and caressed our souls and our conscience, has demanded of us that we be greater than ourselves. So on behalf of all the citizens of King County, we welcome Archbishop Tutu today. We welcome a gift to South Africa, a gift to Africa, a gift to the world, a gift to a generation, and an extraordinary gift of history.
Thank you, Executive Sims. We now welcome back to the stage Laura Chioradai and the Sukhothai Mbira Ensemble. Ms. Chioradai is a native of Zimbabwe who has performed and taught for many years in the United States and in Europe. Her ensemble combines dance and storytelling with traditional and contemporary music from Africa. They will perform two traditional African songs. The first, Chemte Ngure, celebrates the strength of the African people and talks about the coming of the European settlers. The second, Mananga, is about the sweetness of pumpkins, a metaphor for the sweetness of life and of special occasions such as this one.
Thank you. This one, we're really rejoicing that Bishop Tutu is getting this. And I think it's a present to all of us and to the rest of the world. So we are rejoicing in his name. So you're really going to hear some words, and we have to put his name in there so that you know we're celebrating him. We can put our hands together, everybody. Mananga tapira, ona tapira, mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite. Yewe yere, yewe yere, yewe yere, yewe yere. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga tapira. Bishop Tutu tapira kunoite mananga Welcome.
The University of Washington has a number of links to South Africa in healthcare, in technology, and in academic programs. One is the Study Abroad Quarter in Cape Town, run by the Comparative History of Ideas program. Anthony Kelly, a senior majoring in the Comparative History of Ideas, is one of 45 University of Washington undergraduates who spent this past winter quarter in Cape Town. The students explored the themes of identity, memory, and conflict through a combination of coursework and community work, increasingly To prepare our students for a changing world, the university seeks to provide these kinds of opportunities for experiential learning and study abroad. This was, in fact, the second winter Anthony spent in Cape Town, although, of course, it was summer in South Africa. During the fall, Anthony stays here in Seattle, and many of you have had the pleasure of watching him play linebacker on the university's football team. He will now speak about his transforming experience in South Africa. Anthony Kelly.
First off, I would just like to give thanks to God because he's had a Today I feel honored to have been asked to speak at the ceremony recognizing Honorable Bishop Desmond Tutu. I speak truthfully when I say I feel very connected to South Africa due to opportunities presented to me during my junior and senior year to study abroad. My time in South Africa was not only an educational experience, it was a life-changing experience. I spent most of my time in Gugulethu, a local township. I volunteered my time helping feed the poor, play with the needy, and comfort the distraught. My life was much been like those within the townships, but I must admit their hardships are to a degree worse than mine could ever be. However, there are aspects of their lives that are much better, and this showed me the spirit that lies within South Africa. More often than not, the townships are viewed as a place of violence, hopelessness, and disease. I have witnessed these firsthand. I have also seen the importance of kinship within the community. If one is in need of food, thy neighbor will open up their heart and share what little they may have. Moments like that allow me to reflect on my time growing up in the projects within the inner cities where the color of your clothes determine your lifestyle. Drugs and alcohol were at arm's reach to many of us. I witnessed the negative side of drugs and alcohol and vowed never to indulge. Single-parent homes were all around me. Many of our parents lived from paycheck to paycheck. Life for me was rough at times. I had no idea where my next meal would come from. And I spent many days and nights living out of a car. I disliked my youthful years. Once in Africa, I had a rude awakening. I realized how much I, as well as others, have taken life for granted. Even though many of us have experienced hardships, we oftentimes lose sight of blessings that are bestowed upon us. I'm thankful for encouragement that I received from Miss McDonald, one of my high school teachers, and my mentor, her husband, Nobel. They believed in my academic ability when others refused to. I knew with their guidance, if I worked hard and applied myself, success would be in the result. Success is not handed to you, it's something that must be earned. I met many people while in Gugulethu. However, the youth were my primary focus. I witnessed many walking barefoot amongst rubble and glass. Their clothes were very limited, but they took pride in their daily attire. My wife and I embraced a group of girls who called themselves the Mpilo dancers. They attended an after-school program at Nsinga Primary School. A God-fearing woman known to many as Miss Mickey founded the group. They lived in a poverty-stricken area but refused to accept sympathy. They believe that home is what you make it, no matter if it's a tiny shack or a lavish home. I took the time to learn an Xhosa language, and they took time to speak English because we felt that communication was a key factor. It is heartbreaking to know that with limited sources of income, many of these children lack the basic necessities, which we have at our fingertips. Many of them would attend practice with empty stomachs, but with the naked eye, you would not know or have a clue that any of them were hungry. They have a burning desire to express themselves through dance. I often sit back and at times in amazement because of the determination that was displayed. I became a friend as well as a brother to many, and my wife was like a mother. We loved and nurtured them as though they were our own. If only they were given the opportunity to receive a higher level of education, they would work equally as hard. Having seen their drive, I believe the achievement could be unlimited if given the chance. Even in this environment, the girls have created something totally beautiful and positive. The Mpilo dances are an example of greatness in the middle of suffering and hardship. This tells me something about the importance, about the will of South African people. And I believe Desmond Tutu is responsible for helping create and nurture this spirit. My focus in life now has changed thanks to my time in South Africa. Witnessing the determination that children displayed made me reflect on myself and life. And I realized that I had a passion for working with children for the long term. I have always been known for my athletic ability, which I'm thankful for, but knowledge and opportunity are the keys to success. And I would like to help others when given the chance. Currently, my wife and I are working day and night to help raise funds to bring the Mpilo dancers to the States for a cultural, educational experience. Our goal is to create unity amongst the youth of South Africa and the youth of America. My vision stems from the works of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I would like to thank him for opening doors that may have not been open for me to be able to receive an educational and enriched experience while in South Africa. I no longer live day to day wondering what tomorrow holds. I now know that tomorrow is not promised for me, my brothers and sisters in South Africa. So each day I want to continue the fight of creating opportunities for those in the home away from home, South Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu is a leader, and I consider myself blessed to be in his presence. He represents reconciling differences with coexisting together and finding mutual ground without hatred and bitterness. I thank Desmond Tutu for providing this example to me and to all of us. Thank you.
It is now time to confer upon Archbishop Tutu the Honorary Doctor of Humane Letters degree. President McCormick will make the presentation.
This is the first honorary degree the University of Washington has awarded since 1921. Such degrees are authorized by the faculty and regents to recognize individuals other than UW graduates who have made exceptional contributions to human society. Our last honorary degree was awarded to Marshal Ferdinand Foch of France, a distinguished military man who commanded the Allied forces at the close of World War I. That war, you will recall, was meant to make the world safe for democracy. Instead, the 20th century distinguished itself as one of the bloodiest in human history, and the 21st at this moment shows little promise of being any better. So it is noteworthy, I believe, that we resume the awarding of honorary degrees at the University of Washington by recognizing a man of peace, a man indeed through whom peace achieved one of its rare victories in the century just past. Would Archbishop Tutu please join me at the lectern? Desmond Mpilo Tutu, son of a school teacher, yourself a teacher before you were called to the church, you have made of your whole life an inspiring lesson in courage, eloquence, and hope. In the classrooms and history books around the world, your words and deeds in the struggle against apartheid live on. Son of a woman in domestic service, you have preached as a sacred text the common humanity of all people, black and white, rich and poor, male and female, high and low. Son of South Africa, which you have loved passionately in all its beauty and trouble, you have held up for blacks and whites alike the vision of a land where all could be free and whole together. You have been the fearless voice that spoke truth to power, that roused, strengthened, cheered, and comforted the victims of apartheid, that called on the world to bring pressure for justice, but that steadfastly counseled against violent resistance. You blazed a trail in the Anglican Church of South Africa. You were the first black Anglican dean, the first bishop, the first archbishop. You were the first black general secretary of the South African Council of Churches. In each successive role, and often at great personal risk, you rallied people of all faiths and colors to the task of making South Africa anew. In 1984, the 1984 Nobel Peace Prize recognized your indispensable service to that cause. As church leader, as Nobel laureate, and as a man of irresistible humanity, you helped guide South Africa against all odds to peaceful democratic change. You then took on a task at least as hard, presiding over the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, through which South Africans struggled painfully to come to terms with their past, a process, said one writer, unthinkable without Tutu. For your pivotal role in one of the great moral dramas of our time, for your valiant devotion to peace, justice, and healing, and for your deep understanding of both the joys and sorrows of the human condition. The University of Washington is proud to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you, Mr. President, the regents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Honorable Ron Sims. Thank you, all of you producing such splendid music. Thank you for singing Nkosi Sikelel' Africa. But thank you especially for making me a member of this great university. Good afternoon. Now, you gave me a humdinger of a standing ovation, but your response now is lousy. Good afternoon. That's a slight improvement. It is a very, very great privilege to have been invited to come to this university, to become a member of this great institution, and to be awarded this degree. Now, you know I am a preacher, and you have been warned they tell the story of a little girl who went to church with her mommy, and the sermon went on for a very, very long time. There was a red lamp in the sanctuary, and the little girl, after a very long time, said, "Mommy, if it turns green, can we go home?" I accept this prestigious award really representatively. I receive it on behalf of the millions and millions back home who are the real heroes and heroines of our struggle. For it is a truism. What is a leader without followers? And one became increasingly aware of just how much we really owe to those who erroneously are referred to as the ordinary people. In my theology, there are no ordinary people. But it is a remarkable thing, and it was underscored so very much as we sat presiding over the process of seeking to heal a traumatized, a wounded people. Just what fantastic beings God has created. You saw people who could smile, who looked so normal, until they came and told you the anguish that they had carried for so many years in their hearts. Anguish that ought to have shriveled them up as human beings, made them lust so much for revenge and retribution. And they didn't. They were fantastic. The resilience of human beings is quite extraordinary. And I knew then, more than I had known before, that indeed we would never have got our freedom without those so-called ordinary people. And it isn't in order to be considered politically correct for me to say I became far more aware than I had before just how much we owed to the women. I'm not saying that so that I get on the right side of the best thing that God ever created. But once when men were exulting about how God created man, well, women then sort of had their own back by saying, when God created man, she was still experimenting. But it was in fact true. Someone had done a rough analysis of the testimony before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and discovered that when men came before the commission, most of the time they would tell of what happened to themselves. And when women came to testify, almost equally, it was to tell of what happened to someone else. That women were the nurturers of our freedom. Women brought our freedom to birth. But it is on behalf of those, the little people, the anonymous, faceless ones, on whose behalf it is a great privilege to accept an honor such as this one. And don't go away with the notion, oh, isn't he nice? And he's so modest and well, he's nothing of the sort. We went to West Point on one occasion with my wife, and at the end of our visit, the cadets thought they wanted to give me a cap to commemorate the visit. And the cap didn't fit. Now, a nice wife would have said, oh, the cap is too small. My wife said his head is too big. Isn't it remarkable that in a world that can be truly described as hard-nosed, as cynical, in which the law of the jungle holds sway, eat or be eaten, survival of the fittest, dog eat dog, the devil take the hindmost, where success has been elevated to the status of a goddess worshipped so fervently by so many, many millions, in the rat race that makes scandals like those of Enron possible, where the worst thing that could happen to anyone is to fail. For one's worth is computed by achievement, by success. The failure is someone who is then dismissed derisively as a nonentity. When some are driven to a despair that forces them to be substance abusers, or worse, to take their own lives. For their worth is considered not as intrinsic, not as something that comes with a package of being human, but that it is something extrinsic, dependent in most cases on the whims of how the stock exchange performs. Isn't it remarkable that we revere not the successful, not the macho, not the aggressive, not those who have made it. No. We admire a small woman in a simple nun's habit. You could call her many things, but macho would not be one you would apply to a Mother Teresa, canonized by the people even in her lifetime. Why? Not because she was successful. In fact, in many ways, you could say she had not succeeded in making a dent in the poverty that brought so many derelicts to the homes she founded. But why was she revered? Because she was good. Because she was good. In the presence of a Nelson Mandela, people's knees go weak and they get goose pimples. He was not president of a powerful country militarily, nor one that economically was hugely prosperous. Then why would people show him so much adulation? Because he is good. Emerging from 27 years of incarceration, instead of being consumed by bitterness and hatred and anger, he awes the world by speaking of forgiveness and reconciliation, exhibiting an extraordinary magnanimity, generosity of spirit. Why does the world now regard him as an icon of forgiveness, as the statesperson whom everyone wants a piece of? And we could go on multiplying examples. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. Wouldn't be considered the best example of the most fashionable dress. The Dalai Lama, who can't live in his own homeland. And yet when you meet him, he has a mischievous joy, almost like a schoolboy. A joy that many have found so attractive that when if you asked him to come here, you'd have to use your football stadium to accommodate all who would want to come and see him. Why? Why? Because they are good. Because they are good. Even Princess Di, flawed as she might have been, just think of the extraordinary outpouring of devotion and love when she died. And so we could go on and on and on. We said, isn't it remarkable? Well, only at first blush, when we examine this phenomenon, this admiration, this revering that we have for the good, when we examine it more closely, we find that it testifies to an important fact about us, a gloriously wonderful fact, that we have an instinct for goodness. We have, as it were, internal antennae that home in on goodness. Because wonder of wonders, despite all of the evidence to the contrary, we are made for goodness. The evil, the bad, the wrongdoer. Quite extraordinarily. That is the aberration. Yes, we do have an extraordinary capacity for evil, as was shown so devastatingly in the evidence before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The police detained me. They took me into this office. They undressed me. Then they opened a drawer. And they slammed the drawer repeatedly on my nipple, for they had shoved my breast into the drawer. They did this until a white stuff oozed. Any one of us could have been the perpetrator of some of the most gruesome atrocities. Hasn't someone spoken of the banality of evil? For those who confessed to committing atrocities were not monsters with horns growing on their foreheads, with tails tucked away in their pants. They were quite ordinary folk, like you, like me, doing ordinary things, mundane things, like going to church, hugging their children, kissing their wives, and going to work, which in their case often was the routine torture of detainees or the assassination of the opponents of apartheid. None of us could say categorically that had we been subjected to the same influences as these others, we would not ourselves have turned out to be heartless murderers and torturers. No, we can only say humbly and so deeply thankfully, there but for the grace of God go I. Yes, we have the capacity for great evil, each one of us. But you see, wonderfully, exhilaratingly, gloriously, we also have an extraordinary, marvelous capacity for good, for forgiveness, for magnanimity. A white woman came to tell her story to the commission. She was at a Christmas party held in a golf club when one of the liberation movements attacked and a number of her friends were killed. And she was so very badly wounded. She was in ICU for quite a while. When she was discharged, She couldn't do the ordinary things for herself. She was bathed by her children. She was fed by her children. And she said, you know, I can't walk through the security checkpoint at an airport because when I do, I set off all kinds of alarms because she had so much shrapnel still in her body. And she says, of something that left her in this particular condition. She says, it has enriched my life. It has enriched my life. And she says, I would like to meet the perpetrator. I'd like to meet him in a spirit of forgiveness. I'd like to ask him to forgive me. And I would like to forgive him. Fantastic. Fantastic. Extraordinary people. But she was just one example to say we have an extraordinary capacity, all of us, for good, for forgiveness, for magnanimity, for gentleness, for compassion. Because you see, we are created by God. We are created to be like God. But even more wonderfully, we are created for God. We are created we are almost the ultimate paradox, the finite made for the infinite. Nothing less than God can satisfy our God hunger. And so a great African saint could say, Lord, thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. They have said, each one of us has a God-shaped space in us, and only God can fill it. That is why the bad is the aberration, going against what should be our nature. So we are made, we're made for transcendence. We're made for joy and laughter and goodness. We're made for peace, for reconciliation. We're made for compassion and gentleness and sharing. We're made for family. That is the fundamental truth about us. That we belong together. There's an African story of a farmer who had chickens in his backyard. But there was a strange looking chicken pecking away like all the other chickens, but it did look odd. And then a traveler came along who was wise in these things and said to the farmer, "No, man, that's no chicken. That's an eagle." And the farmer said, oh, baloney. That's a chicken. I mean, it goes like all other chickens. Doop, 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 doop. Never looks up into the sky. And the traveler said, please give it to me. And the farmer gave it to him. And so he woke up very early one morning and went up a tall mountain and waited for the sun to rise. And as the sun rose, he turned the strange-looking chicken to face the sun and then said, fly, eagle, fly. And the strange-looking chicken shook itself and spread out its pinions and lifted off. And it soared and soared and flew away into the distance against the rising sun. God says to us, hey, you are no chicken. You are an eagle. Fly, eagle, fly. And God expects that we will shake ourselves, spread out our pinions, and lift off and soar. For we are made for transcendence, for beauty, for truth, for laughter. We are made for family, for fellowship, for togetherness, for sharing, for caring, for compassion. And we say, all belong. Thank you.
In response to Archbishop Tutu's wonderful, stirring address, the Total Experience Gospel Choir and Friends, under the direction of Pastor Patronell Wright, will now perform two songs of the African American community. The first, Pass Me Not, is a black gospel song. The second, Lift Every Voice and Sing, has become known in this country as the Black National Anthem. The Total Experience Gospel Choir, which began as a gospel music class at Franklin High School, is now a nationally and internationally known gospel group. Founder Pat Wright has led the choir on tours as far away as Russia and Australia. We are delighted to have them here today, the Total Experience Gospel Choir.
Thank you very much. We want to thank the members of the Total Experience Gospel Choir, Humane Community Choir, Goodwill Baptist Church Choir, members of the Urban Rhythms Community Choir, and all these wonderful musicians. And our last song is our Black national anthem here in this country. It's called Lift Every Voice and Sing Until Earth and Heaven Ring. And if you'll just rise, it'll make us feel real good.
This special academic convocation of the University of Washington, honoring Archbishop Desmond Tutu, is now closed. The audience is requested to remain seated until the recessional is concluded.